Hello. In this video, I'm going to talk about using the Volatility tool, which is one of the things I recommend you learn early on in Cora. So to access the Volatility tool, we use the Volatility button, and it will open up this window, of which there are two tabs. So for the first time user, you want to go to Settings, set your output directory, put in your track domains. These are the domains of the websites you want advice for, one per line. Make sure you check the MRV groupings and use X notation. We'll talk more about those later. Once you have that set up, then you can put in a test keyword and hit the Run button. If you need to localize for country, language, or near a city, you have those options down here. The Volatility tool is only for normal Google searches, so it doesn't do mobile or Bing. It's just Google desktop. And then once that runs, what it's going to do is it's going to run your search a number of times back to back in quick succession, and that will produce an output report that looks like this. Okay, and so what we see here are the search results, all of them from all 10 searches commingled, and we can see how often they appear in search. And so our website's down here at an average ranking of 17.6, and we can see that our rankings moved all over. It's 20, 17, 17, 11, 20, 17, 17, 20, 17, 20. And so all that volatility occurs within the time frame of about 1 minute. And we chart that volatility here, and we have the most common rank position in the dividing line. And so we can see the upward and downwards testing. You can see that Google kind of locks in its favorites at the top. And then volatility tends to grow as you go down the search results. And so we want to, kind of learn more and get locked in at the top. That's the ideal goal. And so when we look at the infographic at the bottom of this section, we can see that these statements, these probability statements in each record, they have various meanings. So the first number is time sharing. That's what percentage of searches does this URL appear in. The second number is the most common rank position. So the most common position was 40% of searches at number 19. And then, of course, the worst case scenario. How bad does it get? And so one of the things I see going on with rank trackers is people will re-roll their rank trackers until they get a good outcome. So with this example data, they might recheck their rankings until they get a 15. Then they snap a screenshot of the ranking and send it to the client. The problem with doing that is then the client goes to Google, puts in the keyword and searches, and sees a 21. And this is how SEOs get fired, is by accidentally lying with the rankings. And it's not intentional, it's just they just don't understand that rankings are a probability. You actually need multiple samples to tell the story. And so the way we read these is that they're in 50% of searches, but most commonly 40% of the time at number 19 with the worst case of 21. So that's the ranking probability. We like to say we're placing the odds bet on what somebody else is going to see when they try to search for the keyword and URL. Alright, so this number, this time sharing one, is very important. As you can see, the people at the top who are locked in appear 100% of the time, and we don't want to have time sharing, because whenever it's less than 100%, it often means that you have technical SEO issues like keyword cannibalization or extreme topical relevance issues or technical SEO issues. But for whatever reason, we've come to learn that when you aren't in 100% of searches, you can't get quick ranking improvements. It's unlikely. And so when we see this for a page we're trying to rank, we need to fix an underlying problem before we rank the page. And oftentimes the work you do to fix this problem is different work than you'll do to rank the page. It's two projects in one, because this problem was a pre-existing condition, but the project they want solved is the rankings, but you can't do the rankings until you fix this issue. In this case, it's LinkedIn, and LinkedIn up here, this is keyword cannibalization. So two different URLs ranking for the same keyword part of the time. So when we look at the data for the LinkedIn, we can see this X, that use X notation. So these are the searches. The X's are where it fell out of search. So when it wasn't in this search, it got an X, but it appeared as 35 for this other URL that only appeared once and didn't appear the other times. So when it's not in this one, it was in this one. And we can see that the 90 and 10% add up to 100% of search. It doesn't always do that, but often with cannibalization, it will be 100% of search, just multiple URLs. So we have this infographic down below that kind of explains this in case you forget. We also highlight the cannibalization. So if your page was cannibalizing, it would be highlighted yellow down here. Google will split test titles and meta descriptions, and it can impact rankings. It doesn't always impact rankings, but it can. And it kind of comes in and out of season with Google. There are times where they test this stuff more and times where it's quiet. And so right now, title rewriting, split testing rather, is not is widely used, but description testing is widely used. And so we can see down here, here's a website, this HubSpot. It's getting two different descriptions, and they rank at different places. So based on the text Google is choosing, you get different rankings. Doesn't always happen that way, but sometimes it does. And when there are wide swings, I've seen it take web pages from number 5 to page 5. It's in those wild swings that we want to get in there and fix the issue. And you generally do that by tuning the meta description or title for relevancy. The reason Google's going to the page is because either the meta description wasn't set or they did too much CRO in it, and Google doesn't feel that the meta description accurately describes the content. And so you want to go back and fix that when it's the case. You can have split testing and cannibalization with multiple pages. So this is also a possibility. And so the volatility tool has become a step one of every audit I do. It is so diagnostically important to understand what you're looking at before you dive into the work. So I highly recommend that when you do an audit, you look at their most important pages, most important keywords, and get an idea of the health of their rankings. It's a great way to start. All right, so with that, that is the volatility tool.